Let's go back 100 years to find the roots to the Norwegian approach to jointly owned assets and fair distribution of value. This all started with hydropower. Norwegians have called it white gold. Water is a fantastic resource and creates huge amounts of clean as well as renewable energy in Norway. Just by nature, due to the mountains, rivers flow through lots of waterfalls. The question is, who does the waterfall belong to? And who owns the right to earn money from using it? In 1879, the American economist Henry George wrote the book Progress and Poverty. He is best remembered for his ideas about tax on the extra income from natural resources, the so-called land rent. Or more generally, the resource rent. Henry George had seen the massive speculation and property price increases in San Francisco, in the time before the first railroad across the continent was completed. The railroad companies harvested a lot of these profits. George argued that the income from the extra value of land because of the railroad should be owned by everyone, not just the few people who could earn a lot of money because they controlled the land around the railroad. These ideas about resource rent and taxation reached Norway, on the other side of the Atlantic. Towards the end of the 1800s, Norway was formally controlled by Sweden but gained full independence in 1905. It was a time of strong development of industry and a period where it was important to secure income for the new, independent nation. During the last half of the 19th century, investors had started buying up land with waterfalls in Norway. The waterfalls they bought could generate power to drive heavy industry. The country did not have much property left at that time. In 1906, 3/4 of the waterfalls which were developed for industry had foreign owners. Norway's white gold was not under national control. The country risked that all the resource rent from the hydropower produced by the waterfalls was being channeled out of the country, and not for the benefit of the Norwegian people. Did Norway fail to act diligently? It is no surprise that these questions caused tough political fights back then. Like they do today, some politicians believed that Norway needed to get control over its own natural resources and the value generated from using the resources. Others thought this was madness, that it would scare away investors and much-needed capital. An active political debate ended with victory for the ones who argued in favor of national control of important natural resources and the extra income. The country secured national control of the assets and later taxed the income from them. To benefit the whole Norwegian people, this is how Norway managed the riches from the waterfalls. And this is what they did about 70 years later, when they found oil. It's a gas production platform in the waters off the coast of Norway, the world's tallest movable man-made structure. As you can see, taller than the Eiffel Tower, and it's a symbol of how huge the Norwegian oil industry has become. It was country's experience with hydropower, inspired by the thinking of Henry George, which formed Norway's approach to managing the newly discovered oil riches. Norway's oil and gas policy today is to collect a large portion of the profits for society as a whole and manage the wealth this gives us with a long-term perspective. They do this through ownership and the tax system, including resource rent tax. They found oil in 1969. Soon after, the parliament decided that a large share of the profits from oil should go to the Norwegian people, society as a whole. At the heart of this was national control and the tax system. It is important to say, public control does not exclude private stakeholders in business. Norway depends on skills and innovation in the private sector, but while the industry needs to make a profit, it must share the income from extracting oil and gas with the Norwegian people. Everyone jointly own these natural resources. The understanding they have developed over time is that the oil wealth belongs to the whole of the Norwegian people, not just a powerful few. And not just today's Norwegian people, but also future generations. To ensure this, the Norwegian State Petroleum Fund was set up in 1990. This was a fund to secure our future pensions. The value of the fund right now is close to $1.7 trillion, more than 4 times the GDP of mainland Norway.